So just to get this session started, I want to share kind of my journey for the people who don't know me. Is that, for the last, I would say 15 years, I went through a journey of like buying clinics, operating them, and at the peak we got to about 127 locations across the country, and we hit about $87 million in revenue. And so and through that journey, I've dealt with a lot of HR issues, and hiring, firing, and we got to about like 1,400 employees. And what was interesting with my clinic owner journey is that like I spent a lot of money on marketing, and through marketing, I think our peak was spending about $150,000 a month, like on Facebook and like Google ads, so I got a really good sense of like how much money it takes to be able to get like new patients in the door. And so, and which kind of like brought to like the first conclusion I had with all this money I spent over the years in marketing is that my problem number one was that like I was spending a lot of money on marketing, but my schedule is still empty, right? And so type in the chat, everyone. I'm curious. Who's actually having success with marketing right now? Type in like yes or no in the chat, everyone. Type yes or no. Are you having success with your marketing right now? Whether it's like online marketing, whether it is like Facebook marketing, Instagram, doctor marketing, community marketing, like maybe like type in the chat like yes or no, right? Are you having success with marketing? Unsure, no. Frustrated, right? Depends on the marketing, right? And if you are having success with marketing, what type of marketing are you having success with? Is it doctor marketing? Is it like Instagram marketing? Is it Facebook ads? Is it doing like webinars? Is it doing like email marketing? Like what's working, what's not, like word of mouth? Yeah. Not sure how to evaluate. So we got a slew of all these different answers, right? Cats like, Instagram, like SEO, word of mouth, and what's interesting is that I hear, when I think about majority of the practices that I see inside our community is that like majority of them, like their growth in the past, especially in the last year of like their new patients is because of word of mouth, right? And so, and the question is, are you able to operationalize like word of mouth marketing? Because that is like the best source. And for anyone else that is like relying on other different marketing sources, whether it's like Instagram, Facebook, Google ads, or email marketing, or doing webinars, is that like that does work, but you need to be able to measure it, right? And so and so back to like my story is that like like most of you, I spent a lot of money on marketing, and this is what I came up with, everyone. So I'm going to share this like cool little epiphany that I had is that like with my marketing activity, everyone, is that I got a lot of traffic, so I got a lot of people coming to my website, or I got a lot of people signing for stuff, so I got a lot of traffic, whether it's impressions or clicks to my website or social media or followers, but I wasn't converting that into like new patients, right? Who actually is experiencing something very similar, type in the chat, type in traffic in the chat, if this resonates with you. You're spending money on marketing, and maybe you hired a marketing agency, and they're sending you a lot of traffic, but that's not turning into like new patients, right? And what I love about like this little like funnel that we have here, like this is like the new patient journey, right? And if you look at typically how most clinics operate is that like, we spend a lot of money on marketing, we drive the traffic to our clinic, whether it's phone calls or our website, through all their different channels, and what we want is the phone calls to ring, right? And the next step in the journey is like, we want them to be able to like, book a patient, now book into our calendar so we can actually do the first, so they become a new patient. And if they graduate their plan of care, and that might take like 12 visits or 15 visits or maybe 8 visits, they're going to come back and give you like a review or like word of mouth referral. And that's kind of like this whole cycle of like, how you can get like to really, this is how you can actually grow your word of mouth business, right? Is what can we do to be able to increase our plan of care, get people to be able to like come in, graduate from the plan of care, and be able to like tell how awesome your clinic is, which is word of mouth referrals, and give you Google reviews or like the tell the family referrals, right? And so that's kind of like the secret that I've learned over the years on how we could actually, grow these businesses. So like there's two elements here. On the top is like, what can we do actually convert more traffic to new phone calls? And then the second half, I call this like more like on the operational side is once a new patient comes in, how can we get them to complete the plan of care, graduate, and tell more patients, about how awesome your clinic is, which is word of mouth referrals, right? If you get this, type in the chat, word of mouth. Okay. This is how you generate word of mouth referrals, type that in the chat. You got to get them to be able to like graduate from their plan of care. And that will like, by having good, like clinical outcomes, setting their expectation, they will give you online reviews or like they will give you more word of mouth referrals, right? And so for me, everyone, like for me, like I said, my problem was like, when I went through this journey initially, is that I spent a boatload of money on traffic, getting more traffic, whether it's Google, doctors, community marketing, social media, but I was getting the traffic and I saw it in my numbers, but it wasn't turning into new patients. So that was the main problem number two. My second problem that I realized was that like, was the problems with actually my phones. I was getting the traffic, I was getting the phone calls and I realized that like, only 70% of the phone calls that was I getting at the clinic was being answered, So what does that mean? That means that each month, like my average clinic, I was missing 300 phone calls a month, everyone, okay? Type that in the chat, type 300 in the chat, if you're hearing me. What this means is that like, my typical clinic, I was missing out on 300 phone calls a month. And guess how many of those phone calls actually could be potential new patients, Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 30? So that, so my epiphany that I had was like, oh my God, why the heck am I spending all this money on marketing when I'm still missing 300 phone calls? I like my clinic, my front desk couldn't even absorb that type of like volume. And so that was like a big problem for me, And so type in the chat, like how much is a new patient worth to you? Like how much is a new patient worth to your clinic? And once again, if a patient completes their full plan of care, whether it's like 5 visits, 10 visits, or like 15 visits, how much is that new patient worth to you? Is it worth $500? Is it worth $1,000? Type in the chat, and if you're a dental client, it's worth $5,000. And maybe for, a typical, like for Erdem here, right? It's 900, Michelle's like thousands, right? Dave is like, 800 to 1,500 bucks, like an MBA, it might be worth more, right? So, and then once again, the way you have to start looking at like the traffic that comes to your clinic, right? Through phone calls or these like web submissions and forms that you may get. Every one of these phone calls that you don't book, you're really losing $1,000, okay? Like sink that in. Every one of these phone calls that you don't book or you don't answer or you don't call them back because like they filled out a form, you're losing $1,000, okay? If this makes sense, type losing in the chat, right? Type losing in the chat, because I think this part, like you got to sink this in. They're already calling your clinic, but if you don't answer it or you don't convert that phone call, you're literally dropping $1,000. And that to me is, is a lot of money, right? The third problem that I realized, through the journey of like, running clinics is that like, number one, yes, like I'm spending money, I'm not getting the traffic, I'm getting the traffic, but, like my schedules are empty. Number two is my clinics weren't answering the phones, so we're missing out 300 per month, right? You know, even missing 100 is a problem, right? Number 3 is that like I had no easy way to train my front desk on how to like you know, sell over the phone, you know, right? Or how do I get them to be able to like take that phone call and convert that into a new patient, you know, right? And so, and what I found through my journey was that like typically for every 10 patients I call, only 6 would book, right? Which means 4 of those did not book, okay? So that's like 40% would not book, you know? So what would that look like, you know, if we could take that 60% to 80%? That could be literally a 20% increase in new patients if we could actually, you know, train our front desk teams on how to sell or how to like improve patient experience over the phones, you know? If that makes sense, type in the word sales in the chat, okay? Once again, I want to reiterate is that like, you know, most front desk teams that we typically hire don't have like sales training or they don't have customer experience training, you know? And so, you know, and most of the phone calls, when they call them, they treat it as a transaction, you know, right? So it's almost like, hey, you know, like, let's just book you in, or like they ask you for like, you know, like questionnaires based on intake. And so that's a problem, you know, right? And so my biggest epiphany through all the years when everyone's like, how can I be successful with like marketing? You know, is that like, and like my biggest epiphany over the years is that most clinics, and I went through this, is that I don't have a marketing problem. Like my clinics was getting the traffic. I was getting the website visits. I was getting the phone calls, right? You know, my problem was like I had a sales training problem. You know, I never trained my team to be able to like convert phone calls. And what's interesting, like in the healthcare world, and I have a lot of entrepreneurs. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that's in my circle of friends, and like they run different industries. And if you talk to other of your entrepreneurial friends, they usually have a marketing team and they have a sales team. Okay. And so when they understand our when I talk to them about like my healthcare business and typically my response was like, well, I don't have a sales team, you know, right? But that was incorrect thinking, because my sales team is actually the people who picked up the phone call, which is actually my front desk. You know, so my front desk is my sales team. You know, if that makes sense, type in front desk, you know, type in front desk in the chat. You know, once you start seeing and comparing your business to other industries, you know, you will see that your most like you do actually have a sales team. Your sales team is actually your front desk, you know? So how can we start training our front desk in sales so that they don't, so once again, what's important is, I know like sales is kind of like a dirty word in healthcare, is that, you know, how can we train them in sales so it's not salesy, so that like we can actually increase the conversion rates of them booking in. And once we start looking at the business this way, like this is when everything changes, okay? So I want to do a case study with you, everyone, you know? So here's a case study of Google Ads thing with one of our clients, you know, right? And so let me share this with you. So once again, this is Google Ads. Let me share with you something that happened. So, you know, on July the 20th, okay, this clinic spent $183, okay, on Google Ads, right? And from that, you know, look at what happened, you know, they got 2 email submissions and they got 2 phone calls. So in a total, they got 12, like marketing, Google Ads generate 12 conversions, right? You know, and that worked out to be roughly about like $15 like per phone call, you know, or per lead, you know. Is this a good number? Type in the chat. Type in like, is $15 per lead a good number? You know, type yes or no in the chat. What that means is that like, you know, like this marketing agency got them, you know, $15 a phone call. Okay. So everything's like, yes, that's a good number. By the way, $15 is a really good number, everyone. You know, anything less than like the number you want, like for any of your marketing stuff, like especially Google Ads, is you want it to be $30 a phone call. Okay. So this is a good number. This is like $15, June the 20th, $15 a phone call, right? You know, take a look at this. Where is the problem? You know, right? What's the problem with this case study when you look at it? You know, what do you see here that pops out? You know, You know, what do you see? Type in the chat. I'm gonna give you a hint. See, the problem here is that like they got the 12 leads, but they only answered 10% of the time. Okay, answer rate is super low, right? And other ones that they answered, they booked 2, right? In this case, is like it ended up costing them like $91 to get the new patient booked in. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, let's go back in the previous weeks. So the previous week, you know, like what's the answer rates in the previous week? 10, 20, 50, 50, 50, 67, you know? So that tells me, what does that tell you, everyone? Consistently, this clinic for the past month is not answering the phones consistently. So why the heck am I spending Google ads? Okay. If this makes sense, type in the chat, type in Google in the chat, everyone, you know? So it boggles my mind is that like, why is this clinic spending $1,000 like a month on Google, right? When you're only answering less than 50% of the time. It just, you know, and the numbers start not making sense, like of getting this patient booked at your clinic, you know? And so if you're spending this type of money on Google and you're only answering 50% of the time, what's happening with all the other phone calls that you're getting at your clinic, you know? Right? Like, you know, the people who are calling because of word of mouth, or maybe like off that SEO website, or maybe like they're calling in through that Instagram post, you know, are you also answering those at 50, 60%, you know, right? So that's a problem, everyone. Hopefully, once again, this is like a real case study, everyone. I'm showing you like real numbers, and I see this across the board all the time. I see people spending like thousands and thousands of dollars each month on marketing, yet like, you know, like they haven't done nothing to enable their like sales team, you know, to be able to like answer that phone call, convert it, and book them in, you know? And so that is massive, you know? And so, you know, like, so there's 2 elements here, you know, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about sales, you know? So marketing's responsibility in this case is that everything we do on social media, everything we do with like marketing agency, like Google ads, Facebook ads, their main job is to be able to like drive traffic to our websites, or drive traffic, like ultimately, which is drive traffic to our phones, right? You know, right? Or them booking online, okay? And then our sales department is like, in this case, like a front desk. Their main job is like, okay, once I get the phone call, or once I get the email form submissions, how do I convert that opportunity into a new patient book, okay? And so let me ask you, how do we measure the performance of our marketing team right now? Type in the chat. If you could have one or a couple of metrics, how can you measure like whether your marketing is like doing a good job or bad job each week? Type in the chat. How can we measure like whether our marketing is doing a good job? Like what KPI will we use, everyone? Type in the chat. New patients booked per week, right? Julia, that's a good one. So is that the sales? Is that what sales does, or is that what marketing does? You know, Iridim is like the number of new visits booked per front desk admin, you know? Yeah, I like that too, right? So let me break this down into, I'm going to make this like, maybe graphically, it'll make a little more sense, right? So if each week I want to like master marketing, like what I want to measure is that if I spend money on marketing, in this case, you know, once again, this is a call funnel, everyone. So this will make a lot more sense. So if we spend money on marketing, how many phone calls are we getting, or how many email submissions are we getting? Does that make sense, everyone? Type in the chat, type in calls, type in calls in the chat. So if you're working with a marketing agency like Google, like, you know, they're doing your Google ads, I don't care about impressions, clicks, like click-through rate, blah, 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 all the other shit. If I spent $1,000 last week, how many phone calls did I get? How many like email submissions did I get? Like, this is how I measured my marketing performance, okay? How many calls did I get, you know? So once again, if I spend money on doctor referral pads, how many phone calls did I get on doctor referral pads? If I did like this like community event, how many phone calls did I get from that, or email like forms, right? You know, right? So cool, everyone gets this right. So this is how we measure marketing. How many phone calls did we get, you know? Okay. Second question is like, how do we measure our sales team now, right? In this case, our front desk. Type in the chat. How do we measure our sales team? You know, I think there was, yeah, new bookings, Dave. Yeah, that's good. How many patients booked? What else? What behaviors can we measure off our sales team to make sure that they are doing a good job with the calls? Type in the chat. I'm going to give you a hint, guys. The answer is also on this like slide here. There you go. Stephanie's got it, right? You know, so if I'm going to measure my team, like my sales team or my front desk team, I want to know like, hey, each week, you know, if I give you 100 calls, how many are you answering? Okay. You know, and the ones that you answered, everyone, like let's just say you got 100 and the ones that you answered, how many of those actually booked? Okay. If that makes sense, type in booked in the chat, you know? So if I'm going to measure, once again, my sales team, which is my front desk in this case, is that I want to be able to measure like, hey, look, marketing is generating phone calls. Okay. Number one, are you answering them? You know, number two is that the ones that are opportunities, are you booking them? You know? So if I work with my sales team each week to be able to like optimize like this process of answering phone calls and booking them, then it gives me confidence to actually spend more money on marketing. Okay. But if my sales team is not doing a good job, right, of like answering and converting those phone calls, then I should not be spending money on marketing right now because I'm just blowing money. Because once again, remember what we were talking about? Your average clinic is missing 300 phone calls each month, you know, and mind you, not all of these are new patients, but I would say that out of the 300 phone calls, guess how many of the 300 phone calls are potential new patients? Type in the chat. What do you think that number is out of the 45, you know? So your average clinic that gets 1,000 phone calls a month, like they miss 300. How many of the 300 do you think are actually potential new patients? Type that in the chat. I'll tell you what the number is, you know. Let's see. I want to see what people would type. You know, 100 out of 300, right? Michelle, wow. And I think for most people, what you're gonna find out is that like majority, like, you know, like you may miss 300, but a good rule of thumb is typically about, depending on whether you're a new clinic or an experienced clinic, you know, an old clinic, right? You know, if you're a clinic that's been in a longer, like that number will be lower, but if you're a new clinic, this number would be higher, you know, but typically I would say a good rule of thumb is 15%, you know, so 15% of 300 is actually 45, right? You know, you got 45 new patients potentially that you're not closing each month at your clinic. And so Dawn is banging on, Dawn is closed. Dawn is like 50, right? And like, you know, and for most people who spend money on like Google ads, which is kind of the fastest way to get new patients, there is not that type of opportunity. You're not getting 45, like calls like a month from Google ads. Actually, no, some of them may be, you know, but you're not booking 45 of them. Okay. Cool. All right. So this is great. You know, so what I'm going to do now is, you know, like now that you guys kind of get it, we talked about like, how do we measure like our marketing team? Now we're going to talk about, we talked about how do we measure our sales team? I want to give you like 6, like, you know, I call it like growth secrets to actually get more new patients, you know? So this session, I'm not going to talk about like all the operational stuff, which is like, you know, clinical stuff. We're not be talking about how do you get someone to, how do we get someone to increase their PVA, patient visit average, by them completing their plan of care? We're not going to be talking about how to get word of mouth referrals. We're going to start from the top. How do we actually, you know, like, how do we actually get more like marketing traffic, and how do we actually convert those into like new patients? Okay. If you're excited to hear the 6 things I'm going to share with you, type in the number 6 in the chat, everyone. Type in the number 6, okay, in the chat, and we'll kind of go through it. Okay. Step number 1 is you gotta maximize your answer rates, you know? So what I mean, check this out, everyone. You know, if I go back, let's go to this clinic here. If I go back last 7 days, okay, you know, check out this clinic in the last 7 days, everyone. It had 708 phone calls, it missed 36, and it had an answer rate of 94%, you know, right? Is that a good number? An answer rate of 94%? You know, type yes or no in the chat. Yes, that's good, everyone. Like, you know, most call centers typically run about 95%. So they're doing a good job, you know, right? So that's like really good, you know. Second thing that is important is that, like, okay, so in this case, Alpine Health, 7 or 8 calls, They're answering 94%. Like, that's good. But there's like, they still miss 36 phone calls, right? So what would you do? What would you do with the 36 phone calls that you missed? Type in the chat, Michelle, I love you, Michelle. You got to call them back, right? Call them back, because some of them, like, once again, like, they're $1,000. Would you call them? Would you spend like 2 minutes to call them back if they're worth $1,000? Type $1,000 if you would in the chat. Okay. Yeah, Michelle is smart. $1,000. Of course I would. Okay. Right. All right. Next step. Okay. Next step. Check this out. Once again, I want to start from the top. Booking rate. This clinic, on average, last week books, like, let me show you some numbers. So this clinic got 708 calls. They answered 94%. Out of the 708 calls, 137 were like opportunities, So these are like potential new patients, and they did not book 40 of them. So which means I had a booking rate of 70. Oh, I'm not showing my screen. Okay, let me show my screen. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to this. So this clinic, once again, last week, 708 calls, right? Answered 94%. They have a booking rate of like 70%. Okay. Is that a good number or bad number? Type in the chat. What's a good booking rate number, everyone? Type in the chat. And if you don't know, put I don't know, right? A good number I like to see, everyone, is around 85%. Okay. 85%, you want to be able to book at least, like, if 10 people call your clinic, if you have the right scripts and the right person doing it, you should be able to book 85%. Okay, 8 out of the 10 calls, right? So, so let's look at this. So the clinic has a 70% booking, right? Who's doing a really good job? Who did a really good job last week here, right? Type in the chat. Who did a really good job last week, right? Rachel. Okay. Rachel did a really good job. Okay. Who did a terrible job? Right? Julius, right? Yeah. Yeah. Besides no name, but Julius. Let's go back and see the last month. Maybe last month is off. So in the last 30 days, 74% booking rate. Let's start from top to bottom. The best, actually, this is interesting. The best performing consistently is still Rachel, right? Rachel converts at 88%. So does Kim, right? Who consistently is doing a bad job, Julius, right, everyone? So if Julius is on your team, what would you do with Julius? Type in the chat. What would you do with Julius? Right? Like, why is it that like Rachel is doing such a good job and Julius is doing such a bad job? Like, literally, like, like if it's telling me that we could possibly, Fair is a good point, remove him off the phone. Maybe he should just do billing and support, maybe it's training, right? Maybe they don't have the right skill set, but imagine if, like, the only person that was answering the phones for new patients was Rachel and Kim and Sarah. You could be at 80%, so that you could actually increase like your booking rate to 85, right? Yeah. Julius should maybe spend more time with Rachel, right? Yeah. There's so much things you could do. Okay. That's a good one. Okay. So I think that, like, I think practically, like, that's a good idea. And as you get more clinics, you're going to realize that you have 1 or 2 people that are really good. Like, you get 1 or 2 people like Rachel. And in this case is that, like, I will only want Rachel to handle my $1,000 phone calls. If that makes sense, type in Rachel. You can start even like prioritizing who does what in your front desk. If you have Rachel and Kim that are really good with like sales, let them just do sales, right? Let's not get them. And then Julius, let's get Julius off the phones. Julius should be doing billing, or maybe they could do like, like they could clean the tables, or maybe they could do filing, if that makes sense, type in billing in the chat. Okay. Okay. So here's a third opportunity, everyone. You could do this yourselves, everyone. Okay. So let's just say that last week, okay, last week Julius had 8 people, had 8 people that did not book with him. okay? On the phone call, for whatever reason, let's just say like, what's the breakdown? Let's see, you know, they didn't book because of price, or they said, maybe I'll call you back, or maybe it's like availability, okay? You know, so in this case, what can we do? Like, what would you do if you knew that Julius last week didn't book 8? Type in the chat, what would you do? All right. Let's see if anyone's, like, what would you do? Would you explore why? What do you mean explore why? Like, you just listen to the phone call? Is that what you do? And then make it to training? Like, what else would you do? That's a good option. This to me is like, what would you do if you had $8,000 on the table, right? You know, Julia, bingo, call them back, right? So look at the 8 here. The 8, out of the 8 that did not book, they said half of them, you know, half of them were like, I'll call you back, which means like they're thinking about you, they're checking out their clinics out. Half of them was like insurance and price, you know, and availability. So majority is not availability. The majority is like all the other reasons, you know, right? So that's what I would do. I'm gonna, you know, so what I would do is that for these 8 calls, guess what? I'm gonna call all 8 of these back, okay? You know, if you will call them back, type in the chat, like type in winbacks. We call, in our world, we call, let's win back these opportunities from the previous week, you know, or the previous day, and let's try to win them back. Type win back if that makes sense in the chat, okay? Once again, in the sales world, if you look at sales in any other industry outside of like healthcare, you know, they do these win backs. They call it follow-up calls. The people that don't buy, you know, how many people actually follow up with you until they actually buy? So we do the exact same, we should be in the exact same process. And once again, the script we use is going to be very different, you know, but our job is like, you know, is that like, let's win them back, you know, because if not, like it's going to be another clinic down the street that's going to do that. Okay. So we call those win backs. Okay. Which is kind of like, you know, like secret number 3, everyone, like, you know, we need to train our team to deal with why people don't book with you. Okay. What is the timeline for a win back? Farah, I like to, like, someone that called yesterday that didn't book, I will call them I like to call them within 24 hours. Yeah, Farah's bang on, you know, but also like I might call, like I have clinics that call them a day before. We also have clinics call them a week too. Okay. You know, and so part of it is like, can you train your team to deal with like some of like the objections, you know? So type in the chat, what would be a good script we could use, everyone, you know? What will be a good script we could use, all right, to win back these lost callers? So we talked about this, you know, here's the biggest like low hanging fruit, everyone. You don't need Call Hero. You could do this manually yourself. Every person that misses a phone call, what are you going to do? You're going to call them back, right? These are the people that that you missed the phone call, that don't leave a voice message. Call them back, right? You know, the second win back is that the people that don't book with you, I'll call these like lost new patients. They're like the people say, let me think about it. I'll call you back. You know, it's too expensive, or yeah, let me get back to you. You know, call them back 24 hours. Call them back. You know, you could do another follow-up call a week later for $1,000. Would you call them back? You know, if you will call them back, type it because it's worth $1,000. Type $1,000 in chat, everyone. Okay, would you call them back? You know, if it was worth $1,000, right? You know, even if you gave $20 as a rack or incentive for the front desk, it would be totally worth it. I would totally do that, you know, right? And so I'm going to share with you the simple script, everyone, you know. Yeah, Julie brought this up, you know, even better, get a therapist to call them back. And then you could turn that phone call into like a consult, you know, right? If you get therapists to do that, like, I think you're going to get a really good conversion rate, you know, right? And so, or like, you know, if you don't have the right culture in your clinic to do this, or you don't have control over your clinician, then just make it a front desk process, right? What type of conversion rates do you think you'll get back on winbacks? Type in the chat. I'll tell you what the number is, you know, right? What percent, if you make 10 phone calls, winbacks, how many do you think you'll convert into a new patient if you have the right script, you know, and the right person doing it, you know, that is friendly and like, you know, fair as 25%, you know? Yeah. 6, 9. Wow. Geez, I want to hire you guys. So typically, like once again, for these are cold leads. So these are people that aren't your past patient. Typically, if you get the front desk to do it, you should be able to book 2 out of the 10. If you get like a therapist to do it, I think it's closer to 4 out of 10. Okay, because most clinics do not do this. They do not call them back. They feel like it's too salesy. Yet for $1,000, I would totally do that. And let's do some simple math. Like if we go back to Alpine Health in this case, Alpine Health last week had 40 did not books. Okay, and let's just say out of the 40, they converted. Let's just say out of the 40 times, they converted 20% of them. They get the front desk to do it. That's 8. Okay, so that's 8 new patients a week. Let's just say it's worth like $1,000. Let's just say 500. Okay, that's 4,000 a week times like 4 weeks. Okay, 16,000. So Alpine Health right now, because they don't, they're actually losing out on 16,000 a month of revenue. If that makes sense, type in like 16 in the chat. They're losing 16K. And if your clinic is a little smaller, maybe it's 8,000, or maybe it's even smaller. Maybe it's 4,000, but the math is still the same. Okay. So most of you who are spending a couple $1,000s on marketing, are losing 4,000 a month without the marketing easily. So that's why I'm like, oh my God, before you spend money on marketing, focus on your sales. Okay. And so here's a script you guys could use, right? Let me show you a script you could use. This is a script that Elizabeth used in our community. It's front desk driven. Okay. She booked 2 out of 10 people with this script, right? This is it. This is like, it's not very salesy, and I think she had one of her best person do it, like the Rachel. This is like, whatever. This is Kathy from your clinic. You called us last week, we looked at an appointment, blah, blah, blah. Were you able to get in somewhere else, right? That was it. Does this sound salesy to you, everyone? Type in yes or no if this sounds salesy, right? Or it just shows that you care. Type in the chat. Does this seem salesy? Yes or no? Yeah, that's exactly. We're just following up. Is any other clinic doing this? No, exactly. Would you do this for $1,000? Yes. Right? Like there's another script here you could use. I'll send you scripts like on a follow-up email, right? But yeah, like this is a very simple script, everyone, and your front desk could do it. So you don't have to like try to convince like your clinicians to do it. Okay. So that is good. And I give it an example, like, like Shafiq, owner of Athletes Care, like, he has 21 clinics in Ontario. He does about 58,000 a month in Winbacks, right? He has a lot of clinics, obviously. But my point is that like, this is like low hanging fruit for most clinics. If you actually look at, all the different Winbacks on different clinics, you see that some clinics are winning back 10,000 a month, some are doing 4,000, some of them are 200, but there is money on the table, everyone. Okay. So if you're going to start doing Winbacks tomorrow, if you learn anything, type in Winbacks in the chat. You could do this manually, everyone. So anyone that doesn't call your clinic, you just write it down on a piece of paper, call them back 24 hours, and try to find out like, why they call, like whether it's their back, or maybe like they want to play golf, like find out why and call them back to 24 hours, and then like remind yourself a week later to call them back as well, for $1,000, I totally would. Okay. All right. So the second thing, actually secret number 5, when it comes to marketing, everyone, is you got to measure your marketing ROI. So what do I mean by that? Okay. So check this out. So this is a clinic, last 30 days. All right. What do you see here? Right. On this screen here, what do you see, everyone? Type in the chat. What marketing campaign is actually giving them results, right? It's generating them phone calls. Type in the chat if you see anything. Okay. Google Ads, exactly. So this is a client of ours. They're spending about I would say 4. Is that 3? Oh, what is this? 5? yeah, I forgot how much they're spending, but long story short is that, they start tracking their Google ads, so in this case, they created like a tracking number, who knows what a tracking number is? Type in tracking in the chat, that's where you create a number so you could track how many people call that number, and that number gets forwarded to your clinic. Okay. So in this case is that this clinic ran a Google Ads physio campaign, and this is, you call it the tracking number. It gets forwarded to their clinic number. It generated 59 phone calls. Okay. Same problem here. Look how many, this clinic still misses 18, right? Phone calls. And they book 17. Okay. And so they generate, $12,000 a month of Google Ads, right? So it's telling me that their Google Ads campaign is working. Like, look at what's not working. The Google Ads vertical campaign, nothing, nada. Massage, like 3, right? 3 and 0 booked. Pelvic floor. So once again, when it comes to like you spending on marketing, whether it is like webinars, Facebook, like Google Ads, Facebook ads, or community events, or you do collaborations, you want to be able to like measure, your marketing. All these marketing things, marketing performance is like, like how many phone calls did you get? Out of those phone calls, how many calls did you get and how many was booked? And then from that, you can measure your ROI, right? It allows you to be able to like track your ROI. If that makes sense, type in like ROI in the chat, because, next month, this clinic, they're going to start like spending less money on the other marketing campaigns and just dump it on physio, right? And so this is how we can make intelligent decisions with our marketing teams on where we spend marketing dollars, right? I don't want to spend money on all this other stuff that's not generating, generating like phone calls, right? And when I work with marketing agencies, like I don't care about impressions, clicks, and blah, 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 all this other stuff. I just care is that if I give you $1,000, how many phone calls did I get, and then from that, I can measure ROI. If that makes sense, typing like marketing, everyone. That's the mindset you have to have when you spend marketing, everyone. I don't care about all your marketing vanity metrics. I want to like, if I spend $1,000 on Google, I want to know how many phone calls I get. That's it. I don't care about impressions and clicks. If that makes sense to you, type in marketing in the chat. That's what you want to, that's how you measure marketing performance, everyone. Okay, cool, good. Stephanie gets it. All right, I think Freya had some question about how do you reward and recognize your team. I find that if you want to increase your sales team, if you want to increase your front desk performance over the phones, number one is you have to measure it because you get what you measure. Okay. If that makes sense, type in measure in the chat. Okay. How do people know if they're winning or losing each week if they don't know what they're being measured? Okay. Good. Love to see people say it. Number two is that once they're winning or losing, how do you reward and recognize your team? Type in the chat. How would you reward and recognize your team, everyone? What would you do to reward and recognize your teams that someone did a great job, right? What would you do? Your front desk. Andrew's got it. Michelle, High Five Friday, celebrate it on your in your community, Andrea's yep, a note, thank you card, right? Give a gift card. I love personalized notes, right? Chocolates, right? Yeah, these are all these things that what are things that they love to do, right? There's all these things that you could do. And so, here's a list of them. You can recognize them from their peers. You give them spot awards. If they're crushing it, everyone, yeah, maybe get them a gift card to the spa if you, or maybe a manicure, a pedicure. Okay. Maybe they'll really enjoy that, right? Give them a handwritten note, take some time off, maybe breakfast, or maybe you could pay for their annual gym membership, or you could make it into incentive plan as well, right? Maybe part of your quarterly goal setting with them is that you create incentives for you doing X amount and X amount. And if you do this, I'm going to give you like a bonus on top, So this way, like, you don't have those awkward conversations every year is like, oh, you get a 50-cent raise, $1 raise. Most like sales team, like they actually have bonuses and commission plans set up. So can you set up a bonus structure for them to be able to increase their conversion rates and answer rates and phone rates? If that makes sense, type in bonus in the chat. Okay. Type in like bonus in the chat, and then you don't have to deal with like the conversations every single year on like, can I get a 50 cents raise or 25 cents raise? Like, like run it like a sales team. You get what you hunt, right? And so I think that part is like, super cool. All right. I think that was good. So I want to hear from you. Like, what is your biggest takeaway from what we talked about today, everyone? Type that in the chat. What is your biggest takeaway that we talked about in the chat? Type that in the chat, like from our session today, There's like measure, you want to measure your metrics. What else, right? Winbacks. Yes, I love that, like Sharma, right? When, like the minimum you should do is call people back from yesterday, call people back like a week ago, okay? Use that script that I sent you, right? What else? Just call. Measure everything on the front desk, right? What else is there? What else is your biggest takeaway? Measure your marketing ROI, everyone. If you're going to be spending money on Facebook ads, measure it. If you're going to be spending money on doctor referral pads, I will put tracking numbers on referral pads too, to really know which doctors are actually sending them referrals, right? Incentivize positive behaviors. Oh yes, Farrah brings up a good point. There's like two type of like metrics. There are outcome metrics, which is like new patients booked, right? But there's behavior metrics, which is like, what are the behaviors that will generate new patients, that the front desk can control? So if I want to incentivize getting more new patients, then I want to measure the front desk answering the phones and like converting them, right? If that makes sense, type in behavior in the chat. If I measure those two things, I will get the outcomes I want, and that's something within control with the front desk. And it allows you to be able to like pay them more because you have more money in the bank account, which allows you to keep staff and you're not having turnover of people, right? Which I think is super, super like important, right? Okay, that's great. And so, I want to ask everyone in the chat, like, is it okay if I spend maybe the next 5 minutes to go over like, like how Call Hero could help you easily do this, on what we talked about? Maybe type yes or no in the chat, because everything I showed you today, you could do it manually yourself, but I want to show you like how you could easily do it, okay? So that it's not a manual process. And once again, like, and then also at the very end, everyone, I also, if you stay till the end, we're going to give out the skip the dishes, so if you get 2 weeks, we're going to like run a bit of so everyone that typed in the chat today, like you're going to be eligible to do that. And so cool. So, very high level, everyone, like Call Hero, you probably hear me talk about this, but Call Hero is a software that has call recording. We do call tracking for your marketing. And we also analyze the conversations like of all the phone calls you get, right? And so just to give you an idea, like last month, we had analyzed over 100,000 like patient phone calls. Like that is a lot of phone calls, and we work with like, like physio clinics, massage clinics, dental clinics, what else is there? Like dentistry clinics, massage clinic, physio, chiro, medi spas. We're in Canada, the US, and also Australia, right? And just high level, like this is like how Call Hero works, everyone, Call Hero, high level wise, like we install like a modem, we call a Call Hero box into your current phone system. And if you're on an internet phone, we connect remotely and we start analyzing the call funnel in real time, and start giving you like real-time metrics so you can make decisions, plus we give you like all the phone scripts that you need. And we also train your team through 30-day challenges, right? So not only do you get the metrics and the insights, you know, and plus the fact that, you know, if your clinic gets 1,000 phone calls, you don't have time to listen to 1,000 of the phone calls. All the ones you want to listen to are the ones that did not book, okay? You know, so we could cut that time for you and then use that for training purpose. And also we help you train your teams, you know? And so that's kind of like what Call Hero does. And I think the best way to actually share with you is actually even get you is actually to get you to watch like this quick little thing with Karen. I think she kind of shares with you how it kind of works.
Before we had Call Hero in our clinic, we really had no way of determining how many calls were missed, how many people we didn't book, what was being said on the phone. And then when we implemented Call Hero in our fourth quarter in 2019, we started to have actually something we could measure. We had numbers, we had metrics, so we knew what our answer rate was. And then we had recorded scripts that we could go back and listen to see what was being said on the phone or what wasn't being said, and then we could make changes in real time. So we had cancellation rate, we had booking rate, and then with the feature of the people that did not book, we could do winbacks. So in 2019, we actually made $17,000 in winbacks. So those are people that didn't book at the time, but we had their number that we could actually call them back and convert them to a patient. So it's changed our practice immensely. We have things that we can measure. My admin staff absolutely love it. They, in fact, somebody said to me just before I came here that Call Hero is the best thing that we ever got. It helps us do our job better. It makes it easier for us. We get scripts that we can use. Patients love it. Please don't ever get rid of Call Hero. So it's really changed our practice a lot. The results that we've been able to achieve since using Call Hero, I think are tremendous. They're both economic results, $17,000 extra in our fourth quarter from doing win-back calls. It's huge from a financial perspective. But I think the other thing that's happened is the morale of our front desk and our admin staff is so much better. They don't feel as pressured, they don't feel as stressed, they can actually have real numbers that they can have goals to set towards, we can incentivize and bonus those things. So it's really created.
That's great. That was Karen. That was awesome, everyone. And once again, is that like if you love what we talked about today, what I want you to do is like I'd love to get you set up on a demo, everyone, and then Tyra will actually show you kind of how that works if that's something that you are up for. And so once again, I want you to set up a demo, and let me see if these links work. Let's see. Oh, that link doesn't seem to work. Let's get this link set up. Okay. There you go. This demo, this thing will work. Yeah. So if you set up a demo, everyone, it's going to be perfect. Tara will actually show you how it works and kind of go through your scenario, right, to make sure it makes sense. Once again, you're going to book a demo and it will, yeah, so Tara will kind of go through that. And also, if you do it today, I'm going to give you two things, everyone. Just you sign up for the demo. I'm going to give you access to all the phone scripts, right? So you're going to get this phone scripts where I'm going to give you all the scripts of what to say. Okay. You don't have to like sign up for Call Hero. It's an updated version. So I give you all the scripts. You just have to set up that demo call with Taro, and it'll give you the phone scripts. It gives you exactly everything that you need to do and how to deal with all the objections. What do you say when someone says, I'll call you back, or do you take my insurance, or it's too expensive, or I don't have time? Okay. So that's a fast action bonus I'm going to give you. And the second bonus I'm going to give you, just for you setting up this demo with Call Hero, is I'm actually going to I'm also going to get you enrolled in our 30-day challenge where we'll train your team, everyone. Okay. So, you know, and how it works is that in the next 30 days, if you have 4 front desks, we'll sign up your team to train them on what to say on that first call, and then some phone scripts. And, you know, we could sign them up for either the July challenge or the August challenge. So you'll train your entire team, and you don't have to be Call Hero on this. So once again, I just want to sum this up is you're going to get 2 fast action bonus if you do that today. One is I'm going to give you the phone scripts, plus I'm going to do the training for your entire team. And all you need to do is just book a demo with Call Hero, everyone, with Tyra, and she will actually show you how that works, So who's actually gonna do that? Type in demo if you're gonna plan to book a demo with Tyra, so you can give her a heads up. Type that in the chat, everyone, So there's no obligation. Either way, if you sign up, I'm still going to give you those scripts and the free training, So at minimum, I think you could do that. And really, everyone, today you got really got 3 choices, right? So you can spend the last hour and do nothing. You have 3 choices. You could do nothing, waste the last hour. Number 2 is you can do everything that we talked about today, but do it manually. Okay, and number 3 is you can take a leap of faith, do that demo, and kind of go forward with that, right? And so that's kind of my suggestion. And let's